Hello again. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what if Sonic X-treme was released and what the effects that would take place. Note that I am sticking with the same design of Sonic X-treme and only changing certain details. Without further ado, let's begin. Sonic X-treme began development in late 1994, but not on the Sega Saturn, but rather on the Sega Genesis. This was to be the last big Sonic game for the Genesis and its add-ons. But before they could get anything rolling on development, Sega of Japan quickly told STI to drop the game for the Genesis and move it to the Saturn. Sega of America was to produce Sonic X-treme, because Sega Japan, at the time, they were busy working on Nights Over Dreams for the Sega Saturn. The problem was, however, that many members of STI didn't understand how to work with 3D, but even if they didn't know how to do it, they knew that they could do it. I'm not gonna go over the full context of this development, so I insist you, my viewer, to watch Matt McMuscle's video about it. But to simplify this explanation, Sonic X-treme's development was a complete disaster. Company politics, negative visits from Japan, and STI having technical problems caused the game to be cancelled. And not to forget that Chris Sen and Christina Coffin, the two main people behind the game's development, got sick, and Chris Sen was given 6 months to live, but he thankfully recovered afterwards. Not to mention, the game was supposed to be finished by 1996 for the holiday season, which really did not help them at the most. So, the game was cancelled, and Sega contracted Traveler's Tale to port Sonic 3D Blast from the Sega Genesis onto the Saturn. So, that's it for my short, simplified context of Sonic X-treme. Like I just said, Sonic X-treme was cancelled due to multiple reasons, like Sega of Japan and Sega of America not cooperating with each other. The other reason was negative visits from Japan, which in case did not help, and STI having trouble developing the game. So let's change that. Let's go over some changes that we would need to make this game be released. First, make the cooperations between both Sega of Japan and America go well, so no confusion and fuss hurt the game's development. Second, should be that STI would have more experience within the field of 3D hardware. This would help development go smoother and less stressful for the team. And finally, the visits from Sega of Japan. I think after saying that good relations with Sega of Japan and America go smoothly and STI has more experience with the hardware they're given, then maybe the visits from the executives could go well and the executives would praise STI and it would go great. Sonic X-treme would be released into the market for the Christmas holiday season of 1996, and it would be directly competing between Nintendo's Super Mario 64 and Sony's Crash Bandicoot, and many other games as well. Sonic X-treme would probably cost $49.99, the same as any other Saturn titles. It would be cheaper than the Nintendo 64 games, but roughly the same as PlayStation 1 titles. Do I think that Sonic X-treme might be able to compete against Super Mario 64 and Crash Bandicoot? Well, no, and there are some reasons for it. Sonic X-treme used 2D sprites instead of 3D polygon designs. This would have immersed Sonic in a cool 3D environment, Another would be the fisheye perspective. This perspective would cause dizziness to the player, would make it hard for the player to focus on the game. I'll show you a preview on what it looks like. Yeah, I don't really think that's good for your eyes, but if someone would like to play this game and not throw up, then, well, sure. Do I think Sonic X-treme will do great and make a profit? Well, I'm not too certain about that, so I'll split it into two different scenarios. One scenario is going to be if it is successful, and one that it is not. First one we go over if it is successful. And if it is successful, it could influence how 3D Sonic games are played with a fisheye lens, probably. It would most likely become one of the best-selling Sega Saturn games on the system, and it would boost sales for the system, but it wouldn't be able to help outsell the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation, but also not be able to sell more copies than Super Mario 64. And now to what if Sonic X-treme didn't sell well? This, in my opinion, is the more realistic scenario. Sonic X-treme would not be able to save the Sega Saturn. Sonic X-treme would probably bring small health hazard to kids from the fisheye lens, kids with developing eyes. The 2D sprites within the 3D blocky world didn't really visually fit, and people say that Sonic X-treme should have followed the example of Bugs, a 2D, 3D platformer. Sonic X-treme would become the first 3D Sonic games in the series that might not have performed well. But if the game did release in that design that we saw, it could have jeopardized Sonic's next jump in 3D, possibly making Sonic only a 2D platformer. Or something, probably. But most likely, Sega will learn from their mistakes and make Sonic X-treme 2, or Sonic Adventure. But that is my perspective on what if Sonic X-treme was released. Thank you so much for watching this video. This video was mostly opinions and facts, so I probably got some details wrong, but this is the best I could do, so please don't get mad. But if you have any thoughts about this video, then please comment down below. And I would really appreciate if you guys would subscribe to the channel to show support. And I will see you in the next video. See ya!